Okay. The shorter form learning sponsors. Year learning Bella and David Adler in memory of her father, friends of Honey Heifetz, friends of Jack Prince, friends of Sandy Davidoff, friends of Judy Cohen, friends of Dr. Annette Safransky, Gail and Leslie Kaplan in memory of their parents, friends of Linda Katz, Lee and Harvey Greenberg in memory of their parents, friends of Rochelle Ebner, okay? Mike Ike and Evelyn Blachor in memory of his sister, Dr. Phyllis Pacheco. Stephen Eileen Greenberg in memory of his father. A month of learning Tova and Leo Ori Zimmer in memory of her mother and her father. Judith and Michael Poretsky in memory of her father. Perry and Jill Meltzer in memory of his sister and his mother. Reed Pye in memory of her husband. Ira Grobert in memory of his father. Stephanie Gold and Fred Mortman in memory of Jacqueline Santez Lapierre, Sister Bruce Deutsch. Mel and Heron Haller in memory of his mother. Judy Schiff in memory of her mother. Students of Rabbi Yisrael Leibed Kurtzer for his years of dedication as Magashir of Daf Yomi. Okay, week of learning, Karen Josh Sanborn in memory of her father. Michael and Judith Poretsky in memory of his brother. Okay, today is Monday, the 24th. There are no individual days of learning today. Okay. When the Shemis have an aliyah, crank or a fear of the Yeshua Shematlan, but I Yisrael. Okay, and Lachol Am Yisrael Chia. Okay. Okay, today, as we go into the Gemara, okay, on Samach text, okay, 69a, okay, we are about 3-4 lines down from the top, okay, of the Gemara. Okay, we looked at a pasuk there, okay, and in that, as we go through the Gemara today, I want to indicate that we're still really dealing with the issue that came up yesterday's Gemara, where we put forward the idea that a male at the age of 8, okay, would theoretically be capable of becoming a father, okay, in that situation, okay, and the text is going to give us a number of proofs from various biblical sources to that effect.
Or is that medically accurate?
Well, they was not the question that they were asking in the Gemara. Okay?
Good answer.
Okay? They were concerned by more focusing on in other areas. Okay? All right? The Gemara had already proven that it was very clear to them that somebody a male over the age of 9 would.
Says, unlike not.
Okay, right. Okay, that a male over the general text seems to imply that a male over the age of 9, okay, would be capable, okay, of becoming a father, okay, and that under the age of 8, okay, would not be capable. So the question is, what about so what about the age of 8? Okay, so that's why it's focusing on this. That's the essence of the question here.
Excellent.
Okay, in terms of understanding that the back and forth that we're going to see. Okay, if you have computers with you today, or if some of us remember slide rules, okay, all right. Okay, all right. So we could have used this. Okay, all right. Okay. So I do want to point out as we go through Gemara, there are a few comments from Art Scroll that are worth making some notes about. Okay. All right. So I want to go back now and say the following. Okay. So the Gemara ended with the question whether with a statement by Rabbah, who held the opinion that an 8-year-old would not be capable of fathering a child. Okay? And so the Gemara is going to pick. Okay, well, the point is focusing on the 8-year-old question, that he's not capable, right? Okay, that you're not disagreeing with you, but that's the essence. Okay? So what happens? ATV Abaye, and 4 lines down on 69A1, okay? Okay, right, 4 lines, 69A1. Okay, 69A1. Yeah, right.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so what happens? Okay, I is going to challenge Rava in this situation. Okay, all right. Okay, Tive, all right, Abai, his response. We have this pasuk, Ish, okay? Our pasuk that we just cited previously had the phrase Ish, Ish, atatzarich, etc. Not Ish, one person. Ele, Ela, Ish. Okay, this seems to imply that we're only dealing with a male, an adult male. Ben Tesha Shanim V'yom Echad. Okay, a young man who is 9 years old in one day. Shara'ui Labi Aminayin. How do we know this concept that the sages seem to imply that a male of age 9 years in one day would be capable of fathering a child? Okay, I point out. Okay, well, we're going to get to that. We'll get to that in a second. Okay. So the whole essence here is going to be understanding what is the capability. Okay. And the Gemaras we've seen already has raised questions in terms of this, but I point out Art Scroll notes number 5 and number 7 to make a little circle or note in your text if that's what you use. Talmud Lomar, ve'ish, but the pasuk has and a man, a person. So darshaning that, it would appear darshaning that vav. Okay, all right. Okay. Yeah. Ve'ish and the man. Yeshlo. Okay. Ve'eno molid. Okay. That maybe he would still be capable of having a sexual liaison. Okay. But that doesn't mean that he's capable of actually giving birth. Why? Says the Gemara, Kitvu'ah shelo hevia shlish. Okay, because even though he may have the potential, we're comparing it to grain that hasn't grown and sprouted at least a third of its valid growth. So the Gemara says, Dami, that's what he's compared to. Okay? All right. So what happens? Okay, Debei Chizkiah, the Academy of Chizkiah, taught as follows, based on another pasuk, B'chi Yazid Ish. Okay, that pasuk, remember, has to do with doing a little cooking between two brothers. Okay, Yaakov and Esav. Okay, and in that situation, he boiled up some lentils, okay, some porridge, right? So, citing that pasuk, in other words, how do we know, basically, that the Gemara is asking that the term yazid implies this concept of cooking, which we really understand to mean impregnates, okay? Ish mezid umazriya, says the Gemara. That seems to imply that an adult male, okay, has potential seed and can apply it in a sexual situation. Ve'en katan mazid umazriya, but a minor, okay, does not have a viable seed or can act. Amale says Rav Mordechai Rav Ashi. Okay, my mashma Dahai mazid, lishna de beshulehu. How do we know? How can we understand that this use of the term mazid here implies, okay, has that ability, okay? Dichtiv, why? Because it's written, Vayized Yaakov Nazid, okay? That we have a pasuk that clearly says that Yaakov was cooking these lentils to make the porridge. Vaha, Tana Debe Rabbi Yishmael, okay? But here, says the Gemara, we know that the Academy of Rabbi Yishmael taught as follows: Ben velo av, a son and not a father. Hechidami, how is that possible? Ilema de aber batar da aite shte saarot, va'olid makame de la kif zakan. If we're going to say that this young man has already shown physical signs of puberty, okay, but has not shown adult signs completely, okay, okay, mi ika shahut kulihai. Can we say here that this is indeed possible the case? All right, all of this. Vaha amar Rabbi Krus Padai, right? But Rabbi Krosbadai raises the following, and we're going to come back to his statement a little bit later in the Gemara. Kol yamav shel ben, okay, sorer umoreh, eno ela shlosha chodashim bilvad. That the entire time in which a young man could be considered a rebellious son is no more than a period of 3 months. Okay? How is that possible? We're going to see. Ella, rather, says the Gemara, lavdi avid mekame delaite shte sarot. No, it means that this young man, okay, was possible that he was involved in some sexual liaison before he had shown signs of puberty, okay? V'olid mekame delekuf zaken. And as a result, okay, he still could have impregnated somebody, okay? Probably the question may have been a Canaanite slave woman, at least that was one, so, okay? Uh, well, we'll see. That's a different shot, okay? And so what happens before he reached full puberty, okay? Ushma mina katan molid. And this would tell us and give us the proof that a minor, okay, could give birth, could become a father. Now, this is going to be the whole, most of the rest of the daf is going to deal with this question, okay? Right. Is anyone sitting next to you? No? Okay. All right. Heshi, you're going to move over? Okay, thanks. Right? Okay. So what happens? Lo, no, says the Gemara. Okay. Le'olam da'avid batar da'aite shtekara. No, we're saying here that certainly this occurred after he had begun to show initial signs of male puberty. Va'olid batar da'akif sakai. And the child was born. Okay, and sometime later, after that, we know that normally a birth is 9 months. However, Rabbanan felt there was a possibility of a birth at 7 months. Okay, all right. And so what happens? And that occurred after he had reached full puberty. Okay. Okay. So that would try to be perhaps a possible explanation to Rav Krusparai's statement. Okay, Udekakasha the Rabbi Krusparai. And so, what was the what? Okay, all right. They would see them in the bathhouse. Number one. Okay, and that's another topic for another time. Okay, no, because the implication is elsewhere in the Gemara when it talks about marrying a young woman, Okay, the implication is that his sisters might see a potential bride and know then be able to tell certain aspects about her. Okay, so apparently, okay, when you had a public bathhouse, okay, with the Kakasha, the Rabbi Kuspai, and what was difficult for Rabbi Kuspai, he at the Rav Dimi, because when Rav Dimi, remember who travels back and forth, right? Right? Amar, he said, Amre b'ma'arava, they say in Eretz Yisrael, Ben velo hara'ui likroto av, that he's a son, in other words, but he is not worthy of being called. Okay, in other words, when we say not worthy, he's really not capable of being called, in other words, producing a child. Okay, Gufa. Now we come back to this text that we just cited. Okay, Amar Rav, okay, Amar Rav Kusparadai, he said, Amar Rabbi Shabtai, says, Dai kol yamav shaben sorer umoreh, enan elish shloshah chodashim bevad. Again, examining that question. How is it possible that we might say, according to him, that the entire time period, the window, I'm going to say, in which a young man could be considered a rebellious son would only be 3 months. Okay?
Which 3 months?
Well, it's defined by between the time that he has initial signs of puberty to the signs that he has enough signs of maturity that he would be considered more like an adult. Okay? All right, so what happens? Va'anantnan, but we teach from the following. Mishiyavi shtei sa'arot va'ad she'ikov zakan. From the time that he begins to show physical puberty until the time he shows adult. Okay? Art school note number 20 is worth making a note here. He keeps zaken, afal gav delo malu shlosha chodashim. Okay, that could be that he showed physical signs of puberty, even though the time period was not 3 months. Okay? Malu shlosha chodashim. And if the 3 months had occurred, afal gav delo hikif, even though, okay, again, the could not, the 3 months would have passed, and he would not show enough physical signs of maturity to be considered an adult man. Okay, and that's why note number 20 is pointing that out. So what happens, says the Gemara? Yativ Rabbi Yaakov minahar Pekod, Kami de Ravina. So this particular sage, Rabbi Yaakov, from the community of Nahar Pekod, was sitting learning before Ravina. Viati v'ka'amar mishmei de Rav Huna berei de Rav Yoshua. And he was reciting to Ravina a lesson based on teachings from Rav Huna, the son of Rabbi Yoshua. Shmamina, from this we might learn then, from this comment of Rabbi Krosvadai, okay, of this 3-month window, so to speak, being only eligible for a ben sorer umoreh, a rebellious son. Amar Rabbi Shabtai, saying his name, Yoledet l'shiv'ah, okay, that it's possible that a woman might give birth in the 7th month. And yes, that's possible. Okay. Anyone who knows anything about contemporary biology is aware of the fact that there are, okay, that there can be births in 7 months.
My granddaughter just gave birth yesterday.
Mazel tov. After 7 months. Yes, yes. I know somebody personally from that situation also. What? Neonatal unit, where the child will be born. Okay? Of course, it's a lot easier to deal with it today than it was 70-something years ago. but not an eighth.
Exactly.
Not an eighth. Right. Okay. Anyway, let's go on. So he says, Yoledet l'shiva, that a woman could give birth in the 7th month. Yes. Ubera nikar l'shlish yameha. And in that way, what would happen, his pregnancy would be recognized, okay, at least a third of the time. In other words, by the 3rd month, the question is the pregnancy recognized? Okay? So what happened? The isal ka'ata, because if you're going to think and say, ubra nikar l'shlish yameha, that the pregnancy is recognized at least 1/3 of the days. Lama li shlosha? Why do I need 3 months needed to be able to say that the young man would only be able to father at that within that context? Okay, so what happened? Batre, batre, vatilta sagya. Okay, then therefore we would have to say betray vatilta sagya. That maybe in that case, okay, the pregnancy would be recognized in less than 3 months, but maybe 2 1/3 months. Okay, and that would be enough. Amarle, note number 25 in Art Scroll here. Okay, Amarle, he says, Olam emalach, ubrani kar l'shlish yameha. No, that in general we say that the pregnancy is recognized by the 3rd month. Vizil bataruba, and we follow after the majority of women. So the Gemara continues. Amruha kame de Rav Huna, bere de Rav Yoshua, Amarle. Okay, this was said then before Rav Huna, the son of Rabbi Yeshua. Amarle, he said, Ubadine nifashot. Okay, you're using this example of rove as an argument. Hold on a second. That may not be the best proof, okay, to utilize in any kind of situation. But particularly, Dine nefashot.
Always we go bus on the road, but when it comes to executing someone,
that's why I
the
said
bus succession-
particularly Dine nefashot. Me as leaning bataruba, but particularly in regards to death penalty situations, do we go after the majority under those circumstances? Didn't the Torah tell us, HaTorah Amra, V'shaftu ha'edah, V'hitzilu ha'edah? Okay, that the community not only is supposed to judge the person, but also look for leniencies to find the person exempt, to find them, to free them from that penalty. Okay? Ve'at amar, then you say, Gil bataruva, and you say to follow after a majority. So what happens? Ahadruha kame de Rabina. He recanted this before Rabina. Amarle, he said to him, then further, ubedine nefashot, lo azlin and bataruba, regarding capital cases, excuse me, we do not follow a majority. Vahatnan, but isn't it taught elsewhere in another Mishnah? Okay, the following. Echad omer b'shnayim b'chodesh, ve'echad omer b'shlosha. Let's take a situation where 2 witnesses are testifying, and one witness says that his testimony reflects that the act was committed on the 2nd day of the month, and the other witness of the payer says it was committed on the 3rd day of the month. That Mishnah tells us, Edutan kayemet, that their testimony is still considered valid. Why would that be the case? Because this particular witness may be aware of the fact that there was an intercalation of the month. And the other witness may not be aware of the fact that there was an intercalation of the month.
I thought
Okay.
Rabbi sounds like that one person is saying he committed on day 1 and the other one said he committed on day 2. Isn't that contradictory?
No, that's what the Gemara is telling us. Okay?
Because they're the
Okay.
same day.
That it's still the same day. It's just whether or not because you remember some months are 29 days, some months are 30 days. So one witness may be aware of the fact, okay, of that situation, and one may not be aware of
So
that.
it's actually the same day then? They're testing
Yes,
the
they
same
same day.
So if they know that he did kill him, for some reason or other, they find excuse not to kill him, what do they do?
We'll come back to that. Okay. All right. Ve'isal kedatcha. And if you're going to say lo amrinin zil bataruba, that we should not say that we generally follow the majority. Nema hani dafka kamasade va'akushe hu the kamikachshe ahadade. Okay, aren't we therefore going to say that specifically in that kind of case, the witnesses are coming and they're conflicting with one another? Okay, ela lav mishum da amrina. Okay, ela lav, but what is it not? Mishum, because we say zil batar ruba, that we say we go after the majority. Veruba de inshe avde the ta'u bura de yarcha. Are you therefore going to say that the majority of people are such that working people, okay, that they could make an error in terms of determining the intercalation of a month? Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah Midifti, responds Rabbi Yirmiyah Midifti, Af Ananami Tanina. So we also teach the following: Bat Shalosh Shanim V'Yom Echad Mitkadeshet Babia. That it's possible that you could have a female toddler, okay, at the age of 3 years and 1 day, and one could become betrothed to her through a physical act of sexual variety. V'im ba'aleha yabam, and we also say that if the brother-in-law comes to do this act as a way of fulfilling the requirement, okay, of yibum, okay, then she's considered validly married. Okay, what happens? V'chayvin aleh mishum eshet ish, and anyone else who might then have an attempt at a sexual liaison with that child would be considered guilty of an act similar to having relations with any other married woman. Yes, right? Okay.
Then it's adultery?
Yeah. Umitame et bo'ala letama mishkav hatachton ba'elyon. Okay, and in the result, okay, if they had other circumstances, it would render the individual who had relations with her ritually impure, both for the mattress below and any clothes above. Niseit lekohen. Okay, so what happens? Says the Gemara further, Niseit the Kohen, and were this individual who betrothed this minor, this toddler, so to speak, she would be eligible to eat the truma. Okay, and were one who was ineligible, okay, for appropriate marriage, pasla min hakohena, she would then be ineligible to marry Kohen. V'im ba'aleha echad mikol arayot ha'amurot b'Torah, and were one of the, I'm going to use the term in quotes, relatives that are described in the Torah as within the context of forbidden relationships, okay? Mumatin aleh, the person would be put to death. Vehipatura, she would be exempt, right?
Why is she?
Because she's a minor. And you
Oh,
can't put a minor to death because elsewhere in the Gemara it tells us they are not eligible to observe mitzvah.
oh,
Okay, right? Va'amai, and why is that the case as we go on? Ema iloniti. Maybe we might argue that in this situation, okay, we have a unique case that this young child, okay, is really in the status of an ilonit, which is a woman who would be incapable of producing a child. Okay? Va'adata, right? Va'adata dahachi lo kaddish. And therefore, if that's the case, we would say she's not officially considered married.
This is something, since she's only a little kid.
Right. So we don't know for sure.
Never matured.
Right?
So
Right.
if you're gonna kill her partner,
How
it
can you
has to
say
be
that?
It
It has to be clear proof. Right. Ela lav da amrina, isn't it not that we say as follows? Zil batarova. That here too we say that we would follow the majority. Verov nashim lav ailanotnin. And most women, we're saying, are not in the status of one incapable of producing children. Lo, no, says the Gemara. Hold on. My chayav aleta de katan. Okay, so what then do we say that she might be obligated on, liable for? A korban, to bring an offering. Okay, vaha, but here we said mumtin al yada katani, that the text tells us that the paramour would be put to death. It's time. Ba'aleha aviha. No, we're talking about a situation where it was very clearly a situation of incest involved here. Vaha ba'aleha echad mikol arayot katai. But elsewhere, we already have a verse, okay, and a statement in the Mishnah that says what happens if it was one of those forbidden relationships spelled out in the Torah, okay? Elahacha, but here, b'mayas kinan, what are we talking about, huh? Okay, the kabla iluha, okay, what we're talking about here is irregardless, okay, from the Ilanese situation, okay, it would be an act considered erva, okay, and therefore punished in that manner.
They're fully married no matter what happens.
In other words, he accepted the fact, let's phrase it a little differently. He accepted the fact that the marriage would be considered a viable marriage, regardless if later on it showed that she was going to be an Ilanese. That's the point that we've got to understand. Okay? All right. Now the Gemara is going to pick up and raise a slightly different question. Okay? Let's assume, says the Bright, the following. Hamisolelet babana katan. That for some reason a woman fondles or stimulates a young man. Okay, and in this case, okay, the implication seems to be vaha'ara ba. Okay, and remember we had a long discussion on the fact that ha'ara, okay, was a machloket among the sages as to whether this was the actual initiation of a sexual act or not. Okay, Beit Shammai omrim pasla min hakuhuna. According to Beit Shammai, okay, invalid in terms of marrying into the kahuna.
She already had
Okay.
a son. How could she get married in the first place?
It could be she could be a widow and he could be a Cohen.
Could be. Okay. Ubeit Hillel machshiri, but Beit Hillel would permit it. Okay. Amar Rabbi Chia, says Rabbi Chia, Berei de Rabba bar Nachmani, the son of Rabba bar Nachmani, Amar Rav Chisda, in the name of Rav Chisda. Va'amrela, and others say, Amar Rav Chisda, that it was Rav Chisda, Amar Zeiri, in the name of Zeiri. Hakol modim beben tisha shanim v'yom echad shebiato bia. All tend to agree that it's possible for a young man the age of 9 years and 1 day to have relations. Okay? Pachot mi ben shmona, less than age 8, she'ein biato bia, that we do not consider that any kind of valid sexual relations. Lo nichlaku ela ben shmona. They only disagreed when it came to the issue of an 8-year-old. The Beit Shammai Savre, Gamrinan Midorot Harishonim. That Beit Shammai holds, excuse me, that an 8-year-old would be capable of having relations, but okay, and having children, okay, having relations and having children. That was the initial question. Okay, why? Because the earlier generations from the time of the Bible, okay, could produce children when they were 8 years old. Okay, that's his argument, right? Make a note by art scroll number 11. Okay. Ubeit Hillel says as follows, Savre, lo gamrinan midorot harishonim, that we do not learn from any example of biblical sources. Okay? Now, as we continue in the Gemara, as I say, get out your computers, whatever. All right, we're going to do a little math here, okay? And we're going to cite some verses and try to determine what did they mean? What does Beit Shammai learn here as a challenge to Beit Hillel? That there were individuals in the time of the Bible, okay, who could have given birth to as fathers to children when they were initially 8 years old. Okay. All right. So that's what the Gemara is going to pick up. V'dorot harishonim minalan ha'oli. How is it possible that we say that these earlier biblical generations would be capable of producing a progeny, okay, at age 8? If it's written from a following pasuk, Halo zot bat Sheva bat Eliam Eshet Uriah Hachiti. That this would start off with Bathsheba, okay, the daughter of Eliam, who was the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Now, we're going to trace Bathsheba's genealogy, right? Uktiv, and then we have a pasuk that says, Eliam ben Achitophel Hagiloni. Okay, that Eliam was the son of Achitophel Hagiloni, which gives us that Bathsheba is the granddaughter of Achitophel. So far. Now, what happens? Uktiv, and then we have another pasuk. Vayach b'yah Natan Navi. Nice. So this is the great, right, son of Ahitophel. Okay, so we've got 4 generations listed. So now the question is going to be, so at what age should Ahitophel have been, okay, when he fathered the whole genealogy, the whole progeny? Okay, everybody so far? Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jidya is another name. for
Right.
smoke.
Ukti, all right, and it's written, okay. Vayhi l'shnatayim yomim, vayu gozim la'avshalom. And elsewhere, there's another pasuk that's written, and it was after after 2 years, and they were vayu gozim, and they were the shearers, sheep shearers of Avshalom. Uktiv, and elsewhere then it's written, Va'avshalom barach vayelech Geshura. He fled and he went to Geshura. Vayisham shalosh shanim, and he was there for 3 years. Okay. All right. So uktiv, and then it's written. Vayeshev Avshalom Yerushalayim Shnatayim Yamim. That he lived in Jerusalem for 2 more years. These numbers, of these numbers. Okay, so what happens? Right? Nadarti Lashem b'chevron. Uktiv, and then it's written, coming back to our earlier example. Va'achitofel, he was the right. Ra'a kilo ne'esta atzmo, okay, that he didn't follow him, right? Vayechabesh et hachmor, he loaded up his donkey. Vayakam v'leich el. In other words, Achitophel's advice, we're told, was not followed. And what did he do? He went home and committed suicide. Okay? Vayich el beito el iro, to a city. Vayitzav el beito v'yichanei. Okay? Now, what happens here is making note number 21. Okay? Because it tells us there that Solomon was 7 years old when Achitophel, his great-grandfather, died. Okay? All right. So that, okay, that point. So Uktiv. Okay. By the way, also make a note by number 24. Okay? As we go on in a moment. So what happened? Uktiv, and then it's written, Anshe damim umirma lo yichtsu yimehem. Right? And furthermore, Vitanya, and then was taught in the Braita, Kol shnotav shel doeg anan ela shloshim va'arba. Okay? That Doeg only lived for 3 years. Okay, well, we're going to get to that in a second. Okay, the shel Achitophel einan ela shloshim shalosh, and Achitophel died at the age of 33. Okay, we'll see in a moment why both of them died at such a young age. Well, that's we're citing the pasuk. Okay, that anshe damim umirma lo yechatzu yameim, that men that were involved in violence only lived out half their lives. I want to translate it that way. And the Gemara assumes that a normal life was set. Right? Right. Right. So the Gemara says, right? Kama hava the ho flatimutla. So what do we have here? Therefore, we have he was at 33. Dal Sheva Dahavo Shlomo. Deduct 7. That was for what was Shlomo's age. Hash ho, let's read the sheet. That remains a number of 26. What happens? Wait. Don't jump ahead. Dal Tarte. Okay, now we move another 2. Shnei Tal Tata Abore. Why? Because we have to say that a pregnancy, okay, was such over time that it could have been taken 2 years. 3 pregnancies or 2 years. Right. Okay. In 2 years approximately. Okay. But remember we said earlier, the Gemara said it's possible for one to give a pre-birth at 7, but 37 to 21. So they're rounding it off. Right. So they're rounding it off. Okay, that's what they're doing. Okay. Ishtakach chad chad betam le'oli. So this was the way we find that they were capable of giving birth at age 8. Okay? That's one proof. Okay? That's the first effort of it. Now we go on. When she was 6 years old. Okay? More vitality, more strength. In other words, women mature earlier than men. That's okay. Teda daha havela vlad meikara. But wait a second, says the Gemara. Shlomo wasn't her first birth. She had a child earlier. Ela meha. But rather from here we could say another example. Fine, you threw out that example. Give it again. We still said early biblical personalities. We'll try another proof for the same thing that 8-year-olds are capable. All right, we come back to our second tentative proof. All right, okay, no, we're going to run long today. These are the generations of Terach. Terach holided Abram. Terach gave birth to Avra, et Nahor, Nahor, et Haran. Okay? So, from the list we just gave, we're going to assume for the moment that that Abraham was the oldest by 1 year to Nahor. Nahor was 1 year older than Haran. Okay? So that made Nimsa Abraham Gadol Sheshani Haran. And this determination would say that Abraham was 2 years older than Haran. Okay? All right. Now, we might then cite Abraham and Nahor, okay, Hanashim, that they each took wives, etc. V'amrei Rabbi Yitzchak says, Yisra Zosta. Yisra is a name of Sarah. The Lama Nikra Yisra, and why was she called Yisra? Says the God, the Ruach HaKodesh. She gazed, and I'm going to translate it with prophetic vision. Okay? Furthermore, Vahai also, why? Kol Shetoma Lecha Sarah Shma B'Kolah. Because we have the verse that says, okay, and everywhere with pasuk. Vayipol al panav vayitzchak vayitzachek. Okay, he fell on his face and he laughed. Vayomer belibo, etc. And he said in his heart, etc. Now says the Gemara, Kama kashish Avraham Sarah. How much older was Abraham ben Sarah? Eser shanim, 10 years. The kashish me avuha, okay, tartin shanim. And he was older than her father, 2 years, because Haran was her father. Eshtakach, I would then on what basis can you say that? Just because we listed in the pasuk Abraham first, maybe that's not the case, says Gemara. Dilma Abraham Zuta da Achvahava.
Maybe Abraham was the youngest of the three brothers. V'derech chachmatan kachashiv lahom. And they listed them in that order based on their wisdom, their knowledge, right? Right, Teta, and know that's possible. Why? Dekach hashiv laho kra derech chachmatan. Because elsewhere we do have a pasuk, a verse that teaches the generations based on the order of their wisdom. Dichtiv, why? Because it's written, Vahi Noach ben Chamesh Vecham Yafet Shana. Vecham is a year older than Yafet. Nimtza Shem Gadol Miyafet Shtei Shanim. And this would seem to imply that Shem was 2 years older than Yafet. Uchtiv, but it's written again, V'Noach ben Shesh Me'ot Shana. And Noach was 600 years old, right? Amabul Hayamayim al Haaretz, when the flood occurred on the land. Uchtiv, and then it's written, Ve'ele Toldot Shem, and these are the generations of Shem. Shem ben Mea Shana, V'Yoled et Apachshad, Shnatayim Achaniva. No, he was after 2 years old,
Do the math.
right? Right? Ela derech chachmatan kachashim. No, but here it must have listed them according to the order of their wisdom. Hachanami, here too, with regards to Abraham and his brothers, we could say maybe there too, derech chachmatan kachashiv laho, that it listed them according to the order of their intelligence, wisdom. Amar Rav Kahana, says Rav Kahana. The argument was suggested that it could be that it was suggested that Bathsheba could have given birth at age 6.
Put aside that.
No, others and a male at age 9 or 8. That's the question that the Gemara.
Everybody was 8 to get your 20.
It's based.
Men were
Okay,
older,
it's using the.
then you have to subtract.
It's using it's attempting to use the verses to determine to use math in order to get to the fact that one would be capable of giving birth at age 8. That's the whole effort that's being done. We don't say it. We're not saying it happened. I'm just saying they're doing calculations based on psukim. Okay?
The problem is what happens with Rava.
Okay, we'll get to that eventually. Okay, Amar Rav Kahana, this is Rav Kahana. Amrita Lashmata Kami de Rav Zavid Minardea. He told this lesson before Rav Zavid from Nahardea. Amarlai, and he said to him, Atun mehachamat nitu, you learn it from there. Va'anan mehachamat nitla, and we learn it from a different place. Okay, as I try to move along. U'Lashem yulad gamhu, and to Shem there also was born. Okay, what that? Avi kol b'nei Eber. He was the father of all the children of Eber. Achi Yafet. Eber. Okay, Achi Yafet Gadol. He was the brother of Yafet. Okay, Ever. Yeah, that's what I said. Okay, Ever. All right, check your hearing it. Okay, Yafet Gadol. Sheba Chiva. That's implied.
And it's written, Aisha Kalev, the wife of Azuvadai, who was the wife of Kalev, Vayikach lo Kalev et Afrat, and he took another wife, Vateled lo et Chur, and he gave birth to Chur. V'chi avar B'tzalel Mishkan, and when B'tzalel built the Mishkan, what age would he have been? Bar Kama Have, what age? Bar Tlesa, he was 13 years old, if that's the case. Uktiv, and then it's written, Ish Mimlachto Asher Hema Osim, each person doing their kind of work. Okay, Vitanya was taught in the Braita. Shana Rishna Asam Moshe Mishkan. Okay, and the Bezalel
Second, erected the Mishkan. Vishalach Meraglim, and he sent the spies, Uktiv, and then okay, we have a verse that tells us, Ben Aim Shana, Anochi B'Shalach Moshe Eved, okay, etc. Hashem, that was 3 years old when he was sent out as a spy. Okay, by Moshe, Ba'ata Hine Anochi Hayom Kamesh Ushmonim Shana, and now he was 85 years old. Okay, Kama Hava Laho Arbaim. How long was it? 40. Dal Arbesar Dahava B'Tzalel. Remove the fact that B'Tzalel had to have been then 14 years old when the basin, when it was actually erected. Okay.
For the pregnancy, Eshtakat Kolchad Bechad, Betamne Olad. This gives us proof that somebody was able to give birth at age 8. And we're going to stop there. Okay? Okay, and we'll stop at that. Okay.
Say no. I still